That's what you need to know about different economic and political systems. Look at where the refugees go. They always go from more oppressed societies to freer societies, from more socialist economies to capitalist economies. People risk their lives to get to freedom and to prosperity. And that's a more important indicator than the fantasies of some intellectuals about where they should be heading. In that case, the refugees would find a stream of people moving from the loneliness and hopelessness in the US down south.
So what's up with the intellectuals? It's not just now. Forever they have embraced socialism.
I think there's always a temptation for the most educated and intellectual people in a society to think that common people are vulgar and they're hopeless and they can't see how they can really thrive and find meaning in such a shallow society with the kind of media and the Taco Tuesdays that we've got. So I think that intellectuals often search for something else. They want people to reach for something that they find more of meaning into. And since Plato, they often think that they should be the kings themselves.
Angela Davis, famous socialist.
Yeah, racism is integrally linked to capitalism, and I think it's a mistake to assume that we can combat racism by leaving capitalism in place.
I classify racism and capitalism as these conjoined twins. In order to truly be anti-racist, you also have to truly be anti-capitalist.
What? That's complete nonsense. When you look around the world, the least racist societies with the fewest expressions of racist attitudes are the most capitalist countries. And why is that? Capitalism is the first economic system where you only get rich by opening up opportunities for others, for customers, for workers, for other businesses. And in that case, it pays to be colorblind. It pays to be open to willing customers and to workers who could enrich your company and to do business with other businesses, no matter religion or race or what if they happen to cheer for another team. Doesn't mean that every person will be colorblind. There will always be idiots. But in capitalism, it's costly to be an idiot.
In the Jim Crow South, it was businesses that fought Jim Crow because they were losing money.
It's often forgotten that owners of buses, railways, streetcars in the American South didn't really segregate systematically until the late 19th century. Why didn't they do that? It was probably not because they were less racist than others in the South, but they were capitalists. They wanted money, they wanted clients, and they didn't want to engage in some sort of costly and brutal policing business in segregating buses. Rosa Parks in Alabama, who famously got on board that bus and protested against segregation. Well, buses in Alabama wasn't segregated until the year 1900 because the owners were capitalists. And that's exactly why the rulers in the American South instituted laws, Jim Crow laws, to force them to segregate their businesses, because they didn't like greedy capitalists who weren't willing to discriminate against the blacks because it was costly to them.
They cared about green, money, dollars, not black or white.
Yeah, the first rule of business is don't reject willing paying customers and don't harass them, because they won't like what you're doing. So the owners of these transport companies in the South, they tried to avoid those laws, bypass them secretly and fight them in courts. And they were often fined. And the owners were threatened with being imprisoned by southern states because they weren't willing to discriminate. And that's exactly why we got Jim Crow laws, because free markets weren't willing to discriminate. So politicians had to regulate them, to force them to do it.
Thank you, Johann Norberg.